Hey everyone, back with another video. Today I'll be showing you how to remove the baffles out of a Vance Hines Big Radius 2x2 exhaust. This is a full exhaust system and there is two baffles in it. Just a bit of an update on why I am doing the baffles removal. I'm quite happy with the sound. To me, the bike does sound good, but it does sound a little bit barky, raspy on acceleration. So by removing the baffles and cutting it, I'm hoping to get more of a deeper sound, especially at lower speed and idle. I'm leaving some of the baffles in there for back pressure reasons, and by cutting the baffles in half, which is about 15 centimeters, there should be enough baffle in there to not mess with the back pressure and should gain some better sound from it. So I have done a little bit of research. I have read a few forums and a few YouTube videos itself, based on people who've done a similar modification, and they have reported back that the bike sounds better and the back pressure is still all goods. So no performance loss whatsoever and a little bit of better sound. So I'm all for it. So that's what I'll be doing today, and let's get it started. Now if you can have a look here, there is two sections of the heat shield, the top end and the bottom end for both exhausts. We will be removing that part and that part. So it's quite a simple job. From the looks of it, it's just held on by these two screws. Looks like just a flathead Phillips screwdriver. After you get these two bolts off, you will have to push this downwards and get the metal strap off for it to be removed. I've got one off, and it does help a lot if you can squirt some WD-40 up and down here. Help slide it out. So you might not have to remove the back one, as it will just slide right off. So that's the top one off. Onto the next one. That's the bottom bracket off, and the heat shield. So I did have a bit of trouble because my heat shield bolt was right up next to these two bracket bolts that holds the exhaust onto the rear frame. So all I did was just obviously untighten it, gave it a bit of room, and this came right out. Next, we have to remove the baffle. Now this is the hard bit, but basically there's a screw right there, and that holds the baffle into place, and that's the only screw. And same with the bottom one, there's a screw right behind there, and our plan is just to take the screws off, somehow yank the baffle out, and then once that's out, then we can do our thing with it, which is to cut it in half. Make sure when you are cutting it in half, obviously you're cutting the half where it goes into the exhaust first, and leaving the part where we can then re-bolt onto the exhaust. So to take these bolts out that holds the baffle into the exhaust, it is an Allen key, a 532, but from the looks of it down the bottom one, there isn't any room to fit the Allen key in there because of this bottom bracket. That being said, I will most likely have to remove the bottom exhaust at the front and at the bracket so that I can swivel it back and get this on. And obviously once we get this bolt off, we have to attach it onto the bike so that we can then yank the baffle out. So the two bolts are out. I've just tightened the rear exhaust onto its bottom bracket so it's stable enough. So when I obviously pull on the baffle, the whole exhaust doesn't come off. So the bottom baffle is a little bit easier than the top baffle. Now I've got a plier. It's a small needle nose plier. It's actually a fishing plier that has a little edge there. So I'm hoping that could work. I do have a rubber mallet here to help me bang it out. So let's see how that goes. Now the bottom baffle seems to be fairly loose already whilst untying the the screw, it was moving around. So what I might do is obviously we'll spray some WD-40 up in there and then try to pull it out. So the hammering is working, seems to help the baffle move a little bit. Bottom baffle. Now again, the top baffle seems to be the tougher of the two. WD-40 is your friend. Just gonna repeat the process. So I got the two baffles out. The top one was a lot more difficult, but it wasn't that bad. All I did was spray WD-40 up in there as far as I can and just gave it a good tap with the mallet, and eventually it moved down long enough. Then I pushed it back in, sprayed WD-40, took it out a little bit more, sprayed WD-40 in there, and then pushed it back in. So I'm hoping that the WD-40 gets seeped all here, and by pushing it back up and forth, it lubricates the outside wall. And probably 5 minutes later, again, I sprayed WD-40 up in there. I managed to pull it out about that far. I hammered it back in really easy. Then once I yanked on it, it just came right out, and then it just started going out, and then boom. So now we're just gonna cut the baffles. Obviously I'm thinking about cutting it in half, but that's a bit risky because once you do cut the baffles, you can't weld it back on, for instance. So worst comes to worst, you can always get something like the Big City Thunder baffles or the DK custom baffles, but those are really loud. They're good, you know, they do what they do, but we're not going to be risking us not liking the sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from 1/3, and then if I don't like it or if I want more, I'm going to go to half. So 1/3 is about there, so it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 slits, and I'll do the cut, insert it back. If I don't like the sound, I can take it out, cut more or less, right? So that's the plan. So that's the exhaust there without the heat shield and the baffles. So what I'm going to do is just clean up a bit. Looks like there's a little tiny bit of rust or grime from the metal brackets that holds on to the pipes for the heat shield. I'm just going to go over it with some WD-40 and a microfiber cloth, just hopefully rust proof it. So by looking at these baffles, there is 13 slits. I'm gonna cut it down to 5 slits. So it's just a little bit over half that will be inserted back into the bike, and that looks good, about half there. So I will be using a brand new hacksaw, $10 from Bunnings. Hopefully this will be enough to cut through the baffle. If not, you know, you can always go to a shop that will have a machine somewhere, and I'm sure if you ask them to do you a favor, is a 2-second job. But I will be trying to do it myself. And just a reminder, at the end there is where you will be inserting the baffles back into the bike. So it will go this way. So when you do cut it, you'll be removing the top end of the baffle. So considering that the hole is here, we'll be cutting 5 row down here. So I tried cutting the baffle and this was the result. I didn't take into consideration that the baffle is on a curve. So if I was to evenly cut 4 of the slots straight through, it would just keep spiraling. So I didn't do a good job. That might be because the hacksaw I was using is only $10. Didn't have enough sharpness to it. Easy fix. I'm going to take it to a bike shop tomorrow, and I'm just going to tell them, can you please cut it straight down there? And I'm sure they'll have something that can do the job quite easy. So I'll keep you updated. Right, so I got the baffles back. They have been cut by my uncle with an ankle grinder, and as you can see, it looks to be a easy job with the right tool. So that's probably the best way to do it. The shop that I went to didn't want to do it. He actually sent me to a fabrication shop who most likely is going to try to charge me. I don't know why someone with the right tool will take 1 second or 2 seconds, especially with one of those drop down saws. Anyways, my uncle ended up doing it. Did a good job. They are pretty even, I'd say. So I already did a video of the bike with the baffles in and with the baffles removed. So after we installed these and put the shield back, the heat shield, we can start her up again and compare those two notes to the new sound with the baffles being cut down. So just before I put this in, I thought I'd measure the baffles. They were 30 centimeters. Now they are about 18 centimeters. So it's just a little over half, but again, we only cut down 5 slits, leaving 8 slits. But overall, yeah, it's about 18.5 centimeters for both baffles. Okay, so we're going to put the baffles back in. I'm using a 532 Allen key, and it's just 2 bolts. So hopefully we can insert these in pretty easily, and the 2 bolts will hold these baffles on tight enough so that when the baffles are in and the bike does start, as mentioned by my uncle, it's not going to rattle and create a tapping sound. So let's see how it goes. I did mark the baffles on both ends, which is which. So this one is top and this one is the bottom. With the bottom exhaust, it does have to come out because where these bolts go, there's not enough room on this side to fit an Allen key. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm just going to loosen up these bottom brackets here, the 2 bolts, and then I'll just slightly loosen the exhaust enough for it to shift outwards to fit my Allen key in there. We'll tighten it down, everything's good, put it back. So the top one doesn't have to be done like that because there's enough room. So we'll do that one first. And surprisingly, the top one is going in really nicely. Look at that. It was really hard for it to get out. There we go. And you just want to really tighten it on there so it doesn't vibrate apart, of course. Right, that's good. So I'll get this exhaust off and put in the bottom baffle. Okay. Now we can get the bottom baffle in. And the baffles are in. So for me to put the heat shield on, I think I'll have to take the top exhaust off so that I can get some room underneath and see. So what I'm going to do is the same process I did with the bottom exhaust when I took it off. Just going to take the top bolts off a little bit and then loosen the top. Hopefully I can twist it out so that I can get my head around and be able to slide the metal brackets on, then can bolt it. I got the first metal strap. Just gonna slide it straight through. Just a little bit for now, like so, to help the process. And I'm gonna bring it outwards so it clips. Clip the first one through, like that. You have to take the top exhaust off to get the top heat shield on. I couldn't figure out any other way to do it. I tried doing multiple things, and the only way that it worked is by taking it off and doing it this way. So once the heat shield's on, you can slide the rest of the metal strap out and get it all tied up again. Right, so I just put the heat shield back onto the top exhaust. I did notice that these screws aren't like your conventional screw types. This one actually tightened by going counterclockwise, this one tightened by clockwise. I don't know how that works, but I did notice that I had to push down on it a lot and tighten it so that it can grip these metal slits. But they're both on pretty tight. So same deal. I had to take the bottom right exhaust off as well. So for me to tighten the heat shield on properly, it's a lot easier. Alright, so everything's put back together. I've been waiting so long to start this bike with the baffles cut. I'm just going to do a quick comparison video. But yes, everything's all done. A little bit of a process, but it's going to be well worth it. Alright, so I've taken the bike for a ride and everything is good. First note on the sound, much better, much deeper, and surprisingly not as loud. So yeah, it's good. I suggest anyone who was to do an exhaust modification definitely cut the baffles before getting like, you know, something like the Big Thunder City baffles or whatever, or the DK custom ones. They're quite expensive. I mean, cutting the baffles to me worked. I did not notice any low end torque loss through the back pressure loss or whatever. I actually noticed a lot more torque, you know. So when I accelerate really hard, I noticed that the bike wasn't decelerating as fast. It was able to hold its revs a lot better. So that's all to do with the torque of the bike, which actually increased. Also, less backfire. So this bike does need to be tuned. It doesn't have a tuner at the moment, and it's given me a little bit of backfire. And I've noticed that that's kind of completely went away now, especially in the high RPM. However, I did notice one pop, and it was quite a loud pop, but that was because I was really, really high, probably up in the 5,000-6,000 RPM at the end of third gear, and I just let it go. I didn't shift up, then let the RPM down. I just max revved it in third gear, and then let it decelerate in third gear, and then I just heard a so, which is alright, only happened once, so I can't imagine what this bike would do with a correct tuner. So I do have a set of SNS 585 Easy Start chems and SNS lifters on the way. I bought it second hand, got a great deal from an awesome dude for 250 Australian dollars and about $17 for express post. So overall, a bargain. And apparently the bike only had like 17,000 or 15,000 kilometers on it before he is now going to a 124 and decided to get something else. So I'll be installing that obviously after the tuner, but overall right now with the shortened baffle, great modification. I'm super happy with it and highly recommend anyone to do it. Well, that wraps it up for this video, and thanks for watching.